I'm Mark Picard, and coming up a little later, I'll have a profile on indicted Atlanta City Council member Arthur Langford.
A convicted Cobb County man walked out of the DeKalb County Jail today a free man. I'm Ernie Bjorkman. I'll have that report.
Some county sheriffs could be getting a big pay raise. I'm Lynn Harrison with that story. An incredible car train accident in East Point. I'm Sharon McClama. I'll have the story.
This is Action News with Wes Sargentson and Monica Kaufman. Jim Biondi with sports and Johnny Beckman with the weather.
Good evening. William Cross is a free man tonight. He was convicted in 1974 for attempting to bribe DeKalb County police officers. The state charged Cross wanted to be tipped off about gambling raids. Today, a judge said there was a mistake in that trial, so the convicted Cobb County man was released. Ernie Bjorkman was there.
Cross's attorney, Ted Wormsby, had been appealing the conviction for 5 years, but those appeals finally ran out in November. For 2 months, Cross was behind bars. The attorney was waiting for this day. It was a big victory. A DeKalb County judge said Cross had been denied the testimony of a key witness. That mistake, he claimed, was enough to overturn the conviction. Cross emerged from jail around noon after placing a $5,000 bond. He was, of course, happy.
What do you have to say, Bill?
I'm glad to be out and I'm going home with my beautiful wife and family.
What about any action after this? You just going to take it easy for a while?
I'm just going home with my family. You have to talk to Ted about anything. I'm just glad to get out.
This was not the first victory for William Cross. He was also involved in the Super Bowl VI gambling trials up in Cobb County. There, too, he won acquittal last year.
It's now up to the state to make the next move. It's expected it will appeal today's decision to the Georgia Supreme Court. If the Supreme Court upholds the judge's ruling, the state must then decide whether or not it will take William Cross back to court for another trial. From DeKalb County, Ernie Bjorkman, Action News.
3 men robbed a bank in Macon early this afternoon. They fled north along I-75 with lawmen chasing them. When the trio abandoned their car, shots were fired and the bandits fled into the woods. One has been captured so far. The search...
TV5 News Team, the Atlanta news team with Chuck Moore and Jackie Maddox. Superstar Sports with Harmon Wages. Guy Sharp with Color Radar Weather. Here's Chuck Moore.
Good evening. Here's what's happening. Atlanta City Councilman Arthur Langford was indicted today on charges of extortion, perjury, and obstruction of justice. The indictment was returned by a federal grand jury that has been investigating charges of corruption at last year's Southeastern Fair. FBI agents arrested Langford shortly after the indictment was returned. TV5's Richard Belcher and the Live Eye are on the scene right now at the federal courthouse. Richard?
Chuck, Councilman Langford just come out of the courthouse. We're trying to talk with him, and not very successfully. I see he has just gone on down the street. I'm going to put my microphone right back on, and we're going to tell you what happened this afternoon. The indictment of Councilman Arthur Langford was not really a surprise. We reported as early as last fall that the FBI had secretly tape-recorded conversations in which Councilman Langford promised political protection for the promoters of the Southeastern Fair, and there have been documents on file here at the federal courthouse all along indicating that the grand jury was looking into possible charges of extortion and operating under a federal anti-racketeering law. But today's indictment of Councilman Langford for an extortion charge went well beyond that. Though that is the principal charge, the second-term councilman is also charged with 1 count of perjury and 1 count of obstruction of justice. If convicted on all 3, he could face 30 years in prison and $25,000 in fines. Have you been made aware of the contents of the indictment?
No comment. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set us free.
The extortion count specifically charges that Langford agreed to use the influence of office to ensure that the promoters of the Southeastern Fair would have no problem obtaining fire and sanitary services, that Langford would intercede with Deputy Police Director Eldrin Bell so that Bell would lower his fee for providing private security services at the fair, and that Langford would use his influence to waive certain city license fees for the fair's promoters. Langford is charged with receiving an unspecified amount of money in exchange for those services. The perjury count alleges Langford lied when he told the grand jury he had received no money from the fair's promoters. The obstruction of justice count alleges that Langford tried to influence the testimony of an unnamed grand jury witness. After his arrest, Langford was photographed and fingerprinted and arraigned before a federal magistrate. Councilman Arthur Langford pleaded not guilty on all counts and was released on a $7,500 personal recognizance bond. Interestingly, before U.S. Magistrate Owen Forrester would allow Langford to leave the courthouse, this is about a half an hour ago, he took note of what he called the severity of the extortion charge and the obstruction of justice charge, and he sternly warned Langford that any effort to intimidate a witness or tamper with a potential witness in this case would result in the revocation of his bond.
Richard, are there more indictments expected?
We have reported, speculated all along that there are at least 5 targets in this investigation. The best case has been against Arthur Langford. The weakest case against Deputy Police Director Eldrin Bell. But Bell is a target, so is Langford's associate, Reverend Joe Boone, and both of the fair's promoters, Don Pavel and Harry Westbrook. So the grand jury continues for at least another year, we believe, and there certainly could be additional indictments. None this week, we believe.
Okay. Thank you, Richard. Public Service Commissioner Billy Lovett says he will ask the General Assembly to introduce legislation to adopt a code of ethics for the Commission.
WXIA-TV, a company of Combined Communications Corporation.
11 alive.
Good evening, I'm John Pruitt.
And I'm Dave Michaels. A dramatic rescue attempt at a southeast Atlanta apartment fire this morning was a life or death matter for a 3-year-old boy.
Shirley Maxey, 6 months pregnant, stood watching as her belongings went up in flames. Left inside that apartment, her tiny 3-year-old son, Artigo, found lying face down on the floor in a back bedroom, rushed out by an Atlanta firefighter who says he just went in on instinct. Once outside, the firefighter and a DeKalb rescue team worked to save the boy, whose eyes were closed, body still, no signs of life at all. Smoke inhalation had overcome the child to the point where it looked as if there would be no bringing him back. No hope. Then down to the ambulance, slowly, carefully. It seemed forever before they got him into the van. And there the rescue attempt continued. Heart massage, intravenous injection, oxygen, and still no reaction from the child. The boy's mother watched as the men worked, crying, anxious. When it seemed hopeless, when bystanders turned their heads and began to walk away, a small choking sound, a turn of the head, the boy was alive. Saved by 3 men, Larry Atchley, W.T. Wilson, and C.T. Gall, men who never gave up, never turned their heads, and men who still say it was just a part of their job. This was the 3rd such fire at the Bixby Apartments in less than a year, all from the same cause, combustibles too close to the heater. But one tenant says combustibles aren't the problem. It's the heaters themselves.
When you cut the heaters off, they'll come back on automatic, so it's not very safe to leave your house alone, because it's easy to catch a fire. It's very dangerous.
You feel safe living here?
No, I don't feel safe at all. As soon as I can find me somewhere else to go, I'm leaving.
Louise Thomas may be leaving, but other tenants will stay here, running the risk of the same thing happening to them. But if it does, the 3 men who saved tiny Artigo Maxey's life just may not be there next time. Tracy Lyons, 11 Alive News.
Bandits hit 2 banks in Atlanta today. The first robbery occurred at the Trust Company of Georgia office at 1503 Peachtree. A man walked into the bank about 12:40, went to a teller, and demanded money. He showed no weapon and wore no mask. Local black leaders charging they are victims of a white conspiracy said they will rally tomorrow night to support indicted City Councilman Arthur Langford. He has been charged with extortion, perjury, and obstruction of justice in relation to the Southeastern Fair. At a press conference today, Reverend Hosea Williams criticized the FBI for handcuffing Langford during the arrest, calling that criminal and claiming it was done just to embarrass the city councilman. Reverend Williams said it was part of a white frame-up of black leaders.
The people that own this country, and there ain't no whole lot of folks involved. The same people who ordered the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., the same people who ordered the assassination of John F. Kennedy. Those are the people now are afraid that their slaves will break away through black leadership that have given more positive and honest black leadership than white leaders across this country. So you must embarrass the black leaders and you must discredit them.
Reverend Williams said the Coalition to Save Arthur Langford will begin organizing a local and national defense campaign for black leaders. The Pro-Langford rally will be tomorrow night at 8 o'clock at the Central United Methodist Church.
Indicted Atlanta City Councilman Arthur Langford says he is innocent. Langford read a statement to reporters who came to the offices of the United Youth Adult Conference, a social service agency he founded. Langford said the extortion and perjury charges against him in connection with the 1978 Southeastern Fair are the result of a fishing expedition by the grand jury.
As incredible as indictment seems to me, I recognize the seriousness of the charges that have been levied against me. And I am here to make very clearly and to state to you that I am an innocent man.
Langford's attorneys advised him not to answer any questions, and he did not. Before this recent notoriety that he has received, Arthur Langford had been widely accepted as a moderate but energetic force in Atlanta's black community. Tonight, Mark Picard tells us more about who and what Arthur Langford is.
Mr. Langford was into his 6th year on the Atlanta City Council when the indictment was handed down by the grand jury. That indictment has caused some people to ask the question, what is Arthur Langford all about? Langford came to the Atlanta City Council from the 9th Council District, the Bankhead Highway area of northwest Atlanta. He was and is heavily involved in community affairs. He is a member of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the Atlanta Urban League, and the NAACP. His pet project is the United Youth Adult Conference, of which he is president. An interview Action News did with Langford in 1974 is representative of his involvement with the problems of the black community.
One of the problems in the past, a number of people have refused to deal with black drug pushers in the black community, black rapists in the black community. But this particular conference was simply saying that it's time now, once and for all, for us to really deal with black pushers in the black community, to deal with people who are raping in the black community, and to really seriously look at programs and examples how we can go to other cities throughout the country and deal with the problem of crime in the black community once and for all.
Langford was not the most flamboyant of the city's council members, but it was evident from the people in his district I spoke with that he made an impression. What do you think about his getting indicted?
Well, I don't understand it. I don't think that that's right at all. I don't see no reason why they should have indicted him.
So you feel good about the fact that Arthur Langford is your representative at City Council?
Yes, and he can represent me anytime.
Well, if he guilty, I mean, he ought to be punished for what I said.
But as far as his being your council member, as representing you in City Hall, how would you assess the job that he's done?
I think he was all right.
In his more than 5 years on the City Council, Langford served on a number of committees. In 1978, he served a one-year stint as the chairman of the Public Safety Committee. His concern about public safety and about the operation of the Police Bureau was well known among his peers. No way to get an indication of what kind of a man Arthur Langford was than to talk with the people with whom he worked, those on the Atlanta City Council.
Well, he's one of the best. He's one of the people that cares mostly about poor people, which is something we often forget on the City Council, and he through his organization and through his work on the council has done a lot to help poor people and young people.
In the community, Arthur is good at negotiating with councilperson, mediating, keeping us together, and also he's an advocate of the poor people.
Langford was effective behind the scenes in city politics. He was instrumental in arranging a compromise which allowed Mayor Jackson and controversial city administrator Emma Darnell to agree on an end to their dispute. Darnell resigned. And Langford made no secret of the fact that he was a zealous supporter of former Public Safety Commissioner Reginald Eves. Even after the report commissioned by Mayor Jackson was released and suggested that Eves had acted poorly during the police cheating scandal, Langford rallied support for the beleaguered Public Safety Commissioner. For the people in his district who we spoke with and the council members who we spoke with, that indictment would be torn up and thrown away. But it is not. That decision is up to a court of law, whose decision can clear Arthur Langford or end his career of public service. At City Hall, Mark Picard, Action News.
Georgia teachers have winning ways. At least that's what Atlanta's educators think. Bob Moore. It was almost unbelievable. A garbage truck fell on top of a small sports car in East Point this afternoon, trapping a young woman inside. Sharon McClama tells of the frantic efforts to rescue her.
It was a bizarre accident. A Southern Railroad train hit a city garbage truck as it came across the tracks. The frightened driver jumped from the truck and ran to safety as his truck slowly fell along the tracks. A 23-year-old woman in a small sports car laid down in the front seat of her car as the heavy truck smashed through her windshield.
The vaccine that prevents an often fatal blood disease in babies is not new. But what is new is a dramatic decrease in the number of babies with Rh disease, about a 60% drop. Hank Philippi has more on today's To Your Health.
This baby is undergoing phototherapy under lights. It's one way of treating a condition that sometimes occurs when a mother has Rh negative blood and her baby has Rh positive.
For the last million or so years, it was the Oconee River. As of 5:30 yesterday afternoon, a 4-county stretch of that river started becoming Lake Oconee, the result of a $190 million dam built by Georgia Power.
Once filled, it'll be the second largest lake in Georgia, with 19,000 acres of red clay, timber, and farmland underwater. And while that may...
Bad weather forced the closings of several North Georgia schools today. We sent our 11 Alive Skycam to Cherokee and Forsyth counties for a bird's-eye look and found a blanket of white snow.
It was a real treat for some North Georgians. Snow, as much as 1.5 inches of the white stuff in some places. Residents of extreme North Georgia were hardest hit.
Jackie.
Burglaries on Atlanta's Boulevard Drive have some shop owners angry and quite worried. They say police protection in the area is almost non-existent. Here's more from TV5 News Scene's Paul Yates.
It was a bad morning for these business people on Boulevard Drive. Burglars came through 2 layers of brick and concrete through the back wall into the beauty shop.
The state Supreme Court has been asked to hurry up and settle a challenge to the state's local option sales tax law.
And the special unit is back again with a report on a controversial Cobb County detective. Those stories and more are next.
Some of the babies in this high-risk nursery wouldn't have to be here if their mothers had only known. I'm Hank Philippi. That's my health report today.
This is Jim Biondi. Later on, the sports will take you to the boat show.
What's it like to celebrate your 100th birthday? I'm Bob Moore. I'll have a report.
Coming up, Joe Washington and the National News Wrap-Up, including an update on 2 fires in New Jersey.
Well, everybody's just about had a comment on Super Bowl 13.
Indeed, and I'm going to have one, too, in just a few minutes, so stand by. The stage is just about set. Hollywood Henderson has said all he can. Tom Landry has sufficiently intimidated the officials, and Chuck Noll has actually managed to be duller than Landry. Now, only the game remains, and just about everybody agrees that the final score will depend on the contest between Pittsburgh quarterback Terry Bradshaw and the Dallas secondary.
Terry Bradshaw has emerged as the primary threat on a Pittsburgh.
NFL Commissioner Pete Rozelle revealed today that 2 of the officials assigned to Sunday's Super Bowl are residents of Pittsburgh. One of them, Jerry Bergman, is a transportation manager in the Steel City. He'll be the head linesman, a key official in any game. The other is Chuck Hebeling, a high school athletic administrator in Pittsburgh, an alternate official for Super Bowl 13. Now, this is astonishing. In college ball, no official is allowed to work a game involving the school from which he graduated because he might cheat. No, because it's terribly unfair to put an official in a position where cheating charges are even remotely possible. I'm amazed these 2 officials agreed to work the game, let alone got assigned to it by Pete Rozelle. The usually competent commissioner has opened the door for all sorts of rumor and innuendo. His mistake should be rectified with 2 new officials, not from Pittsburgh, being named before the kickoff on Sunday. Atlanta Flames end their 2-week homestand tonight with the Chicago Blackhawks coming into the Omni. Here's a look at Mr. Murdoch, who was acquired from Los Angeles for Richard Mulhern last week. Well, one of the first signs of spring is the boat show coming back to Atlanta, and this year's edition starts a 10-day run tonight at the World Congress Center. Anything that's ever been on water is there. Phoenix Open, it's going down the drain. Today's second round was also rained out, so now it'll be a 54-hole tournament running through Monday. And one more thing about Willie B. He picked the Dallas Cowboys today to win by 3 points on Sunday. I said, when the zoo called with that information, how did he do that? And she said he held up 3 fingers and pointed south.
We should tell on you, Jim. You wouldn't mind if there were 2 officials from Dallas at that game.
Oh, that wouldn't be fair either. You know I'm very impartial about it.
What will the football widows be doing this Sunday? Knox has some answers coming up.
Some Northeast Atlanta shop owners say they aren't getting enough police protection.
And Harmon Wages tells us who will win the Super Bowl and why. The first half of Superstar Sports is next as News Scene picks a winner.
Well, he may not be the best linebacker around, but he sure knows how to get on television.
He certainly does. He's the loudest linebacker. By now, most of you have read or heard the comments of Dallas Cowboy linebacker Hollywood Tom Henderson. A few of those comments are, Steeler quarterback Terry Bradshaw is an idiot. Gave him a C and a T. He still couldn't spell cats. Very stupid, he says. Tight end Randy Grossman, who he'll be covering, is a joke. Pittsburgh has no depth. We will beat Dallas for sure, says Henderson. Now, here's what interests me. Dallas Cowboy coach Tom Landry is known as Mr. Finesse, and yet he has yet to mention to any of his head assistants or veteran players to tell Tom Henderson to sort of cool it. Well, why not is the question. Well, I feel Tom Landry knows that the winner of this game will require 100% concentration from all 45 players to win. Coming up in the second half of sports, a look at a profile on a lesser-known player in the Super Bowl, and a report from Bill Hartman on Southern Tech, a college in Marietta ranked 12th in the country in small college basketball.
So Dallas will win, eh?
I'm picking Dallas.
Okay, Hartman.
Okay.
Thank you. Jackie?
Super Bowl 13 is now history, and our sports director, Art Ekman, was there to visually record it.
Right, John. Blackie Sherrod of the Dallas Times-Herald said that Super Bowls have been like 2 counterpunchers in boxing. Nobody throws the first punch. But he also went on to say that there is a good possibility that Super Bowl 13 will be the best one ever. And it came out that true. True to pregame predictions, the first Super Bowl rematch in the game's history proved to be a great one. Super Bowl 10 matching Pittsburgh and Dallas was one of the few non-clinkers of the past, but this one couldn't be matched. The new pass interference rules definitely have opened up things, and Pittsburgh was the right kind of team, willing and ready to force conservatism right out the window. We'll be back later in the news with our own locker room interviews from the Orange Bowl in Miami later in tonight's news. Flames are back in action tonight, and they'll face off with the Boston Bruins in Boston. Atlanta is coming off a 3-game winning streak, but Tom Lysiak and Bill Clement won't play due to injuries. John Gould and Gene Carr should take their spots on the roster. The Hawks get a rest tonight, and in fact, they'll also get a rest during the All-Star break as the substitutes were named today for the February 4th All-Star game, and for the 3rd straight year, the Hawks were shut out. No one on the ball club. John Drew was the last Hawk to play, and that was back in 1976. Last Hawk starters, Lou Hudson and Pete Maravich, back in 1974.
That's typical. That's typical.
Thank you. With the beautiful weather we had earlier this week, you just knew the rain would show up eventually, and Johnny has the forecast in a moment. John, we're getting a little worried.
It's a nasty
Temperature's going
night.
down, the rain's coming down.
That sounds like ice,
And
ice.
poetic.
I didn't know
And there's
that.
a rosy medallion setting. What's going to happen?
You mean the temperature's going down and the rain's coming down, too?
I don't know the rain. You know, the temperature's low. I'm sorry, John. I don't mean to take the weather forecast.
Goodness gracious. We I don't want to make light of it. We have a lot of rain.
You will forgive me?
No, that's okay.
All
Listen, I've got your name on my list over here. I'm not going to tell you which list. We do have rain occurring around our area, and the temperature is holding about 35 or 36 degrees right around the city. I don't think it's going to go any lower than that, or at least not more than a couple of degrees lower than that tonight. If it did go down to 32, we'd have some problems. But the temperature should begin to go up a little later on tonight as we have a warm front drift up over our area. But that's not to belay the fact that there could be a little sleet mixed with our rain here in the metro area tonight. I don't think it's going to be enough to pose any problems around our city. But in the northeastern sections of the state, up in the mountain areas particularly, there will be some sleet and some freezing rain. And there are traveler's advisories from the northeastern. We've had just extremely light rainfall occurring around the northern sections of the state. It's so light, it's almost in the form of mist, and it's not showing up very well. It's so light. There's a little bit around the city, as you can see, and we've got some patches of extremely light rainfall occurring in the northeastern sections of the state. The rain-like pictures from last night and this morning are quite interesting. Show a big buildup of wet air out in the lower Mississippi Valley, a subtropical jet pulling a great deal of wet air into that area, and this is usually the case. The moisture buildup is over to the west of us or southwest of us, then it moves on. We think we have it bad. Brother, they've got some bad weather in some areas. We got the rain today, but we didn't get the warmer temperatures. We thought it would be milder. This warm front lies down along the northern Gulf. We thought it would push on up over our state today, but this high-pressure cell in the eastern states dug right in here with a little tongue of cold air that pushed right. Here's our forecast then for Atlanta and vicinity. For tonight, it's going to be rainy and cold in Atlanta. There could be a little bit of sleet mixed with the rain. Low temperature should be about 35 degrees, and I don't think it will get any lower than that. Saturday, it will be cloudy and warmer with intermittent periods of rain. High temperature about 50 tomorrow. Then Saturday night, rainy and turning colder early Sunday morning with a low of 32 degrees. And Sunday is going to be a cloudy, windy, and cold day with a chance of snow flurries. Highest afternoon temperature on Sunday will be about 36. Probability of that precipitation 80% tonight through Saturday night, 30% on Sunday. Outlook for the early part of next week, mostly fair and very cold. It's going to be highs near 40, lows near 20 for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
Thank you, John. I'm glad the temperatures aren't dropping. Appreciate it.
Guy Sharp is standing by to tell us why it's so warm outside, and he's next as News Scene continues.
Even though we're enjoying sunshine and super days here in Atlanta, winter is here, and it's showing its colors in other parts of the country.
Yeah, from Arizona up to Maine, they know that wintertime is around. We're going to feel the effects of that, but not necessarily with snow and freezing rain and the like, just rain. And that should start tomorrow, about midday, and last through most of Saturday morning. Let's take a look at our color radar. Right now, the sky is generally clear over all of North Atlanta, North Georgia, and most of the southeast. However, that is going to rather rapidly change. Current conditions for Atlanta and vicinity shape up this way. Our present temperature is 52 Fahrenheit, 11 Celsius, after a high today of 60 and a morning low of 50. The sky, for the moment anyway, is clear. When you look at the satellite map, notice the cloud formation stretching from Arizona and Texas and New Mexico all the way up through the Central Plains states and on into the Midwest and New England and the lakes. Well, that's where most of the bad stuff is going to be, and it has been somewhat extended. We had hoped earlier today that part of that in the southern plains would clear out by tonight, but unfortunately it's not. Light rain and snow showers. These cities you may want to travel to. Those are tomorrow's highs in the sky conditions. Our mid-afternoon readings today range from 57 at Rome to 72 at Savannah. According to this youngster, we got rain on the way. Well, Rick Sharp, no kin, but appreciate the name. Mine's with an E and yours was without. That's okay. We're going to have rain, partly cloudy and cooler, then cloudy with rain. Friday ending Saturday. Low in the morning 37, the high tomorrow 50. And the 5-day forecast. Once the rain ends Saturday, we'll have clearing skies and colder temperatures, but not drastically so.
Coming up from the newsroom, Russ Minshew. And what's ahead for us, weather-wise? Scott Mule with you in your pocketbook and some money-saving hints on your taxes. Joe Washington has national news, including a report on President Carter's new budget. And the Royal Lipizzans come to Atlanta. Carol Bogart has more.
Look, Russ Minshew's weather bears the seal of approval of the American Meteorological Society.
There was just that hint of snow in the air over Atlanta over the weekend, but not like North Georgia.
No, we were close. And that, if you look back over the records in the city of Atlanta for many, many years, Atlanta frequently is close to bad weather, close to the ice storms, close to the snow. We still have plenty of time, though, for you snow lovers. Before the winter is over, we may get a taste. In fact, we're looking for some flurries by day after tomorrow, so we have a very rapidly changing weather situation, and you'll see a little bit of everything in the 5-day outlook in just a few minutes. First, though, these are the official figures for today in the city of Atlanta. The record low 10 was set in 9 temperatures across the state of Georgia, and there's about a 10-degree span. Rome has dropped down now to 36 degrees. Down south, Brunswick has 48. All the stations continue to report fair skies, although there are a few high clouds you'll see in a moment when we look at our satellite photographs. And as you might have guessed from the way it feels outside Atlanta, it is not raining in the state. That is verified also by color pinpoint radar sweeping the entire southeastern part of the country. And I think radar will continue to look this way through tonight and the first half of tomorrow. However, by tomorrow afternoon, a rapidly moving storm, which we'll see on the big map in a moment, will start spreading rain. Now, this is a brand new satellite photograph. This is an infrared shot responding to various levels of heat on the tops of the clouds. Generally speaking, not always, but generally speaking, the darkest areas show the highest, coldest clouds. That is, I say generally, because these pictures kind of come in steps. We start with light, and we go back to dark, light. On the big weather map, you can see we've put an L here in the western part of Kansas. That's the beginning of the new storm. It seems as though we have one every other day, and it has really created an incredibly bad winter up north, perhaps worse this year than the last two, and as you know, the last two were record breakers. This storm will be sweeping down to northern Louisiana and then take a sharp turn back up into the Midwest in the next 24 to 36 hours. Look at the upper atmosphere. It's not a split flow, as was the case. One main stream at the 500 millibar level, or 20,000 feet up, comes down through the Rockies straight into the east. But in the next 24 hours, it will change, too, rather quickly. Instead of running right out into the Atlantic, it will curve to the north, and that's the reason that storm is going to run right up into the Midwest. So, having said all of that, this is what it looks like for tomorrow. With the clear sky being produced by that high pressure down in Florida, we'll have a good frosty morning tomorrow with a low temperature in the city of 27, but relatively mild during the day tomorrow, noticeably higher than today with a high temperature at least of 50 degrees, and there will be sunshine in the first part of the day. But then the clouds come in, and you'll notice that. They'll come in very rapidly during the day, and if I can find my raindrops, I have them this time, there will be rain, and early enough that I think those of you get off at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you should definitely have the umbrellas or rain gear so you won't get wet going home. The sun rises at 7:40. It sets at 6 o'clock. And here's the 5-day outlook. As I say, a bit of everything. Rain, that should be PM rain. Don't expect it in the morning. In fact, a chance of rain. Maybe we'll change the forecast before it's over with. But tomorrow, a rapidly changing situation.
After those mild temperatures last week, I was hoping we would luck into a nice, quick spring.
No, I'm sorry.
Winter's back.
Nothing stable.
Yes.
The least we could get would be a nice weekend, which we haven't had for a while. Thank you, Russ. Here's another chance.
Shooter Paul Reynolds checked out a long-distance move where the load miraculously gained weight during the trip. Paul?
It is sort of a miracle, isn't it? The call came from a fellow named Ira Greenberg, who recently moved to Atlanta from Colorado. Now, Greenberg has some questions about just how his shipment gained 700 pounds on the trip east. Allied Van Lines did the move for Mr. Greenberg. When the shipment arrived, the payoff was more than Greenberg expected. He says he's just been trying to understand how the weights were different in Atlanta from what they were in Boulder.
Tonight's editorial is about the Public Service Commission. Here's TV5 Vice President and General Manager Paul Raymond.
We took note last week of the obvious dissension on the Public Service Commission. The point we tried to make was that dissension is not always bad.
Tonight, as we continue our series update on health, Dr. Timothy Johnson talks about traffic accidents.
We tend to think of the problem of highway death solely in terms of automobile or motorcycle accidents. You might be startled to learn, therefore, that almost 1/5 of all highway deaths occur to people outside vehicles. In other words, to pedestrians.
It's Friday again, and Lou Davis takes that opportunity to look at his mailbag. And here's Lou.
Yeah, lots of letters again over the past couple of weeks on a wide variety of subjects, all the way from that gorilla in the zoo to the legislature. Well, maybe not so wide a variety of subjects. Just kidding. First,
some people, Atlanta's cultural reputation isn't too important, but others know it as a great art center. Every weekend there are art exhibits and displays all around the city. On this weekend's Cheap Thrills, we'd like to show you just some of what's available to you for free. Tonight, Paul Harvey has some suggestions for one of those times when you're not too sure about proper manners. It's a visit to the hospital.
You know, the bedside manners of most people, and some doctors are atrocious.
benefit for Jobs for the Poor tonight. Fulton County Commissioner Reginald Eves will be there to speak, and we'll have a complete report on Action News at 11. Have a very pleasant weekend.
And enjoy the Super Bowl. Good night.
This is NBC Nightly News.
Time now to get the final word on the weather from Guy Sharp.
Well, we got some rain moving in. Partly cloudy and cooler tonight, and then mostly cloudy with rain beginning Friday, ending Saturday morning, then turning clearer and colder. Low in the morning, 37, the high tomorrow about 60 degrees.
Okay, thank you, Guy. That's what's happening. Stay tuned now for the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite. We'll see you again tonight at 11 o'clock. Have a good evening.
Portions of News Scene have been brought to you by D.L. Claiborne Buick and Big Star Food Stores.
This is the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite.
And that's the news on this Monday.
ABC World News Tonight is coming up next. We'll see you tonight at 11, right after How the West Was Won. I'm Dave Michaels of the team. Good night.
Good night.
In tune with Atlanta, 11 alive.
Satellite photograph. This is an infrared shot responding to various levels of heat on the tops of the clouds. Generally speaking, not always, but generally speaking, the darkest areas show the highest, coldest clouds. That is, I say generally because these pictures kind of come in steps. We start with light and we go back to dark, light. On the big weather map, you can see we've put an L here in the western part of Kansas. That's the beginning of the new storm. It seems as though we have one every other day, and it has really created an incredibly bad winter up north, perhaps worse this year than the last two, and as you know, the last two were record breakers. This storm will be sweeping down to northern Louisiana and then take a sharp turn back up into the Midwest in the next 24 to 36 hours. Look at the upper atmosphere. It's not a split flow, as was the case. One main stream at the 500 millibar level, or 20,000 feet up, comes down through the Rockies straight into the east. But in the next 24 hours, it will change, too, rather quickly. Instead of running right out into the Atlantic, it will curve to the north, and that's the reason that storm is going to run right up into the Midwest. So, having said all of that, this is what it looks like for tomorrow. With the clear sky being produced by that high pressure down in Florida, we'll have a good frosty morning tomorrow with a low temperature in the city of 27, but relatively mild during the day tomorrow, noticeably higher than today with a high temperature at least of 50 degrees, and there will be sunshine in the first part of the day. But then the clouds come in, and you'll notice that. They'll come in very rapidly during the day, and if I can find my raindrops, I have them this time, there will be rain, and early enough that I think those of you get off at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you should definitely have the umbrellas or rain gear so you won't get wet going home. The sun rises at 7:40. It sets at 6 o'clock. And here's the 5-day outlook. As I say, a bit of everything. Rain, that should be PM rain. Don't expect it in the morning. In fact, a chance of rain. Maybe we'll change the forecast before it's over with. But tomorrow, a rapidly changing situation.
After those mild temperatures last week, I was hoping we would luck into a nice, quick spring.
No, I'm sorry.
Winter's back.
Nothing stable.
Yes.
The least we could get would be a nice weekend, which we haven't had for a while. Thank you, Rob. Here's another chance for you to ease the strain on you and your pocketbook at income tax time. This one's for students and ways they can take in thousands of dollars while going to school and yet not pay a cent in taxes.
Uncle Sam gives college students some tax help when it comes to...
Former president leads About People tonight. Gerald Ford in Israel on an official visit take time out to visit Jerusalem's Western Wall. Surrounded by photographers, Ford follows the tradition of inserting a message into one of the crevices of the wall. For the first time, a woman will hold the elected office of president of the American Hospital Association. Sister Irene Krauss, head of Providence Hospital in Washington, will take over the Hospital Association's presidency in 1980. She is also the first member of a religious community to hold that office. And the 85 verdicts are handed down in a father and son trial. That story leads tonight's news from around the state. A federal court in Rome found a father and son guilty of several firearms violations in a case that stemmed from an alleged plot to murder a county official. The father, Burl Eugene Causey, and his son Burl Jr. were arrested last fall on charges of conspiring to assassinate a Floyd County district attorney. The Savannah Airport has been chosen as a test site for experiments to determine if residual heat found in the ground can be used as an energy source.
Shooter Paul Reynolds checked out a long-distance move where the load miraculously gained weight during the trip. Paul?
It is sort of a miracle, isn't it? The call came from a fellow named Ira Greenberg, who recently moved to Atlanta from Colorado. Now, Greenberg has some questions about just how his shipment gained 700 pounds on the trip east. Allied van lines did the move for Mr. Greenberg. When the shipment arrived, the payoff was more than Greenberg expected. He says he's just been trying to understand how the weights were different in Atlanta from what they were in Boulder when he left.
A former private detective and an employee of Southern Bell both face sentencing tomorrow in federal court on charges stemming from illegal wiretap activities. Well, TV5 Special Unit has followed several aspects of this story for many months. Here's Jim Axel.
We've reported on the former private detective since August of 1977.
Tonight's editorial is about the Public Service Commission. Here's TV5 Vice President and General Manager Paul Raymond.
We took note last week of the obvious dissension on the Public Service Commission. The point we tried to make was that dissension is not always bad.
Tonight, as we continue our series update on health, Dr. Timothy Johnson talks about traffic accidents.
We tend to think of the problem of highway death solely in terms of automobile or motorcycle accidents. You might be startled to learn, therefore, that almost 1/5 of all highway deaths occur to people outside vehicles. In other words, to pedestrians.
It's Friday again, and Lou Davis takes that opportunity to look at his mailbag. And here's Lou.
Yeah, lots of letters again over the past couple of weeks on a wide variety of subjects, all the way from that gorilla in the zoo to the legislature. Well, maybe not so wide a variety of subjects. Just kidding. First,
some people, Atlanta's cultural reputation isn't too important, but others know it as a great art center. Every weekend there are art exhibits and displays all around the city. On this weekend's Cheap Thrills, we'd like to show you just some of what's available to you for free. Tonight, Paul Harvey has some suggestions for one of those times when you're not too sure about proper manners. It's a visit to the hospital.
You know, the bedside manners of most people, and some doctors are atrocious.
John asked a guy out in Cobb County today why he wasn't wearing a coat, and he said he had his socks on. He didn't need one. So, just thought I'd tell you that.
Okay. Gee whiz, I need a vacation. We got a warm front down to the south. When it drifts up over our area tonight, the temperatures will stabilize, but in the meantime, we're holding about 34 degrees, and we got some rain in the area. It could be a little sleet mixed with the rain before the warm temperatures come our way. Here's the forecast for Atlanta and vicinity for tonight: cloudy and rainy. Low temperature about 34 degrees. Saturday's going to be cloudy and warmer with intermittent periods of rain, high about 50. Saturday night, rainy and turning colder. Early Sunday morning with a low of 32. And Sunday's going to be a cloudy, windy, and cold day with a chance of snow flurries. We've got light rain occurring now, and the temperature is 34 degrees downtown.
Thank you, John. D.B. Cooper has become a legend in this country. He's the man who hijacked a jet some years ago and then parachuted out of the plane with about $250,000 in ransom money. He vanished without a trace, but now there is a new clue in the case.
Well, despite the sudden appearance of this tantalizing clue, the mystery of D.B. Cooper remains just that. Don Porter for NBC News, Kelso, Washington.
A benefit for jobs for the poor tonight. Fulton County Commissioner Reginald Eves will be there to speak, and we'll have a complete report on Action News at 11. Have a very pleasant weekend.
And enjoy the Super Bowl. Good night.
This is NBC Nightly News.
Time now to get the final word on the weather from Guy Sharp.
Well, we got some rain moving in. Partly cloudy and cooler tonight. And Then mostly cloudy with rain beginning Friday, ending Saturday morning, then turning clearer and colder. Low in the morning 37, the high tomorrow about 50 degrees.
Okay, thank you, Guy. That's what's happening. Stay tuned now for the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite. We'll see you again tonight at 11 o'clock. Have a good evening.
Portions of News Scene have been brought to you by D.L. Claiborne Buick and Big Star Food Stores.
This is the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite.
And that's the news on this Monday.
ABC World News Tonight is coming up next. We'll see you tonight at 11, right after How the West Was Won. I'm Dave Michaels of the team. Good night.
Good night.
In tune with Atlanta, 11 arrives.